Hello, it's Thursday. It's 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is a special edition of Higher Ed Live. Today we're bringing you a fun top 10 list of social media gold. These tactics are your social media programs that you can put into action today. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about Higher Ed Live and the Higher Ed Live network. At Higher Ed Live, we offer professional development podcasts and webcasts to empower higher ed professionals working in admissions, advancement, student affairs, and marketing. We keep these webcasts free and accessible to you in the archives at higheredlive.com and on iTunes. This is only possible with the support of our partners. And today's show would not be possible without the support of Cornell University. Shout out to the employer of both my guest and myself. We also need to update you on all of those partners that are making today's show possible. Produced by M. Stoner, a marketing communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and much more. Omni Update, the leading web content management system. They're providing a solution to higher education called the OU Campus CMS. It's secure, scalable, it has great tools and features, deployment flexibility, and an awesome user community. Higher Ed Live is also sponsored by Terminal 4. They're a digital engagement and web content management system built exclusively for higher education. They enable universities and community colleges to achieve their online goals, including driving student recruitment, retention, alumni fundraising, and research promotion by maximizing the effectiveness of their digital and content strategies. Terminal 4 is used by higher education institutions all over the world. They count some of the world's best-rated universities and colleges as clients, and each year continue to grow their client base. So thank you, T4, for your support. One of the best parts about being on a live show is that we get to interact with you, the live viewers, and our live viewers can be part of the broadcast right now by sharing insights and asking questions on Twitter using the Higher Ed Live hashtag. You can receive updates with live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. And with all of that, I'm ready to kick off today's show. I'm your host, Ashley Budd, and today my guest is Keith Hannon, my BFF at Cornell University Alumni Affairs. We are part of the social media strategy team, and Keith is the voice for Cornell alumni on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. He's also a video producer extraordinaire, office jokester by day, and stand-up comedian by night, and soon to be, any minute now, the father of two strapping young lads. Today we're bringing to you, with a little bit of a drum roll, Higher Ed's top 10 list for social media gold. And Keith, I want to give you a big welcome to Higher Ed Live.
Thanks. As I tweeted earlier, it just feels like I'm feels like I'm able to hang out with the cool kids by being on the show.
Well, you're certainly a cool kid.
Yes, and I think the office jokester is probably the most productive part of my job.
Well,
we'll try to stay focused on real things here today.
Real things, big and small. Well, we have 10 awesome social media tactics that anyone at any institution could put into action today. And so let's kick it off with number 10. Number 10 is lists and rankings. Anyone tuning in today is proof of that concept. Like a top 10 list, and here you are. So, Keith, what can you tell me about your experience posting links, lists, or rankings to the social media spaces?
Yeah, I think they are frequently hated by some, beloved by others, but I think what makes them such good content is the fact that they can be polarizing. They whether you're a top 10 school or you do something in the top 10, there's so many websites out there that I think have figured out that their content can go viral if they just put certain big name universities on a list. And I think they create a lot of debate, a lot of conversation, whether, you know, the people that disagree get a chance to air their grievances. The people that want to celebrate it, they get a chance to do that. And more times than not, you can find a list that, whether it's your food or your bar scene, that where your campus shows up near the top. So why not celebrate that? So I think it is a piece of content gold, as irrelevant or insignificant as it may be. It gives people a chance to celebrate or to vent about the legitimacy of it. But as a social media community manager, you just want reactions. You want engagement. And I think these lists can certainly provide plenty of that. And just, I would say, be prepared to tend to that community should things get out of hand or ugly, and you might need to do some moderating, but well worth the risk.
Well worth the risk. And these lists are pretty easy to compile, and for the audience, pretty easy to read. So I think that's part of why they're such a slam dunk.
Yeah, and I would say, you know what, if you're not out there on a list, go make your own list.
Yes.
Create a list where you know you will dominate your peer institutions or your conference rivals. You can find something, and even if it's completely arbitrary or borderline fictional.
Make it.
Yeah, it's something you can celebrate. I mean, there's nothing liable about saying we are better than you. You know, hamburger chains do that all the time. We have the best burgers. You know, why can't you do that with your institution?
Well, I think this is a nice segue into number 9. Keith, why don't you tell us what number 9 is?
So number 9, we're going with BuzzFeed quizzes, which is topical because just a few days ago, BuzzFeed now makes it possible for any member of the BuzzFeed community to create quizzes. And we created our first for Cornell alumni yesterday and posted it last night, and it is done, I wouldn't say surprisingly well, but well as expected, because people are accustomed to taking these types of quizzes, so why wouldn't you want to connect that to your brand and create something that resonates with your community? So we did there's a food truck that's been on the Cornell campus since 1960 called the Hot Truck, and it has 5 sandwiches that are well known. They all have an acronym. So we did which Hot Truck sandwich are you, and asked 5 questions, 5 quiz questions that were completely random. Asked people to choose like a professional wrestler that they that they relate to, an entertainer, a place on campus that they would go to when they had the choice. So a little bit of everything, and then we announced to them which sandwich they were and had funny descriptions for what that sandwich said about that person's personality. But I just looked at the stats. You know, we've had over 2,000 clicks to the quiz since 9 o'clock last night, so you know, not even 24 hours old, and we're over 2,000 clicks. So I would highly encourage anybody and everybody out there to get in on this, and it's fun. I mean, they're fun to make. It certainly fueled me creatively to come up with descriptions and answers to these quizzes, and I think it really resonates with your audience. And I think it just goes back to the idea of taking something that's popular already and tying that to your brand and your institution. You know, why wouldn't you do that? I guess some schools would be nervous that, oh my goodness, you know, we are a heralded institution. We can't have a brand presence on BuzzFeed. And as we with Andrew, if the New York Times is all on board, then maybe you should be on board.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. And so we just tweeted out the link over the Higher Ed Live handle on how to create your own BuzzFeed quiz. So go out there and share your quizzes with us. You can take our Hot Truck quiz. If you look up the Cornell alumni community on BuzzFeed, I am the garlic sandwich. I've actually never eaten at the Hot Truck, so now when I go eat at the Hot Truck during homecoming next week, I think I have to order the one that is fit for me.
You and I are both a WGC, which is the traditional Hot Truck sandwich, only on garlic bread. So
yeah.
We are
I already know
we are a strong personality, I think, is the description says, a personality that lingers.
Nice.
So yes, even if you're not a Cornellian, it's worth your time to go to the BuzzFeed quiz and find out what kind of pizza sub you are. I think that's a question we've all asked ourselves at some point. That's right.
All right. Well, we've got number 8, and I'm going to share number 8 with a special shout out to the one and only Mike Petrov over there at university you might have heard of. He's over at Harvard doing social media and digital strategy, and he brings us the number 8 social media gold item, which is the GIF. The GIF? I don't know. I call it a GIF. So shout out to Mike Petrov for this piece of social media gold. Mike is a proud supporter of GIF Nation, or GIF Nation. He's recently been able to incorporate GIFs into all sorts of media across Harvard web and the social media space. So go check out Mike's work with the Harvard Gazette. My favorite source of GIFs is Giphy. So I'll tweet out a link to that, and I'm also going to put out a call to our viewers to share their favorite GIF with us using the Higher Ed Live hashtag. So let's make some noise. I know we've got a lot of people tuning in. We want to see your favorite GIFs. Keith, any comments on GIFs? I mean, those are given, right?
I love GIFs. They are the GIF to social media managers everywhere. Terrible pun. I also like puns. I where a social media colleague, Tim Jones from Clarkson University, spent a lot of time talking about GIFs and even torturing some of the audience with GIFs that are undoubtedly still lodged in their brains 3 weeks later. But I think these are hilarious pieces of content, and one thing you'll hear content people devoted to the idea of authentic content love to talk about, the use of humor in content being very effective, and GIFs are typically very funny, and they're not hard to make either. So if you don't have any GIFs out there that really relate to your university, go out and make one. It's fun. It's not that hard, and they're usually very shareable. And certainly, the reason we're talking about content, I think one aspect of content gold is things that have viral potential. And, things like BuzzFeed quizzes, we've already had over 50 shares of our BuzzFeed quiz on Facebook. So in this age of throttled organic reach, I think you really have to take some of these themes that are already popular on the social web and put your brand stamp on them, and I don't think GIFs are any exception. So yes, more GIFs.
More GIFs.
If you can incorporate animals into your GIF, like you're going platinum. You're not just gold.
Let's talk about number 7, and number 7 is one that is near and dear to Keith Hannon's heart. It is gaming. So gaming, number 7. Keith, take it away. What examples do you have to share? What kind of gaming happens in the social web?
Yeah, I think when you're talking about what has erupted over the past 5 to 6 years with the adoption of and increase in social media usage. It's gaming, it's games, it's mobile gaming, it's Facebook gaming. People spend a ton of time playing games, and if that is a behavior that's already widely accepted by social media audiences, your constituents are part of that population. So why not give a gaming opportunity again with your brand? So, as some people may know, we a few years ago built out a Facebook game for Cornell that just allows us to host trivia contests with leaderboards and score sharing, and you can invite your friends, and now it's mobile friendly. Certainly a costly endeavor that I know not all schools can do, but also just running little photo contests on Facebook. Can you name this campus location? Or another thing I used to like to do is there's some different sites online that allow you to take a picture and turn it into a virtual jigsaw puzzle, and then you can have a unique link to that puzzle. You share it on Facebook to our alumni audience, and they go and first person to put the puzzle together and take a screenshot of it would win something from us. Just little things like that.
You've also got a fancy might be frozen in the almost frozen tundra that is Ithaca, New York.
No, I got you. Sorry.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about the Facebook game that you've helped bring to Cornell and what that involves, what kind of interactions you get from people, because that's bringing gamification on Facebook, I think, to another level.
Yeah, it's fun because we wanted a fairly simple game that would be easy to interact with, user-friendly. So trivia seemed like the way to go. It's an opportunity to quiz people on Cornell-related stuff while also educating them on things happening in the present, which I think we're always trying to do that in a digestible way so that people maybe get more involved in things happening on campus and at the university. And we've also used it we recently used it to test people on old exams from classes that a lot of alumni took during their time here. And that was actually way more popular than any of our kind of historic trivia quizzes. People were really interested in finding out if they could still pass their old Cornell exams. So that was fun. That was easy just to reach out to professors and departments and say, hey, can you give me a midterm or something from your class? And people had a lot of fun with that. And again, we gave out prizes for that. But I love the leaderboard functionality because you can see everyone playing the game along with their name and class year and a link to their Facebook page. So maybe there's people playing the game that you were good friends with, but you didn't know they were on Facebook. You can easily click through to their page and do a friend request. And for us, we get a database on the back end of everyone that's played the game. So we have over 2,000 alums who have played this game, ranging from classes in the 50s all the way up to present day. So that's a wide range of alumni. It blasts a hole in the theory that only young people play games and social media. We actually, in our previous contest, not the one running right now, but our previous contest, we had someone from, I think, the class of 53 that was in the top 10. So, there's a lot of, I think, fallacies out there with regards to gaming and who's interested in it. And, you can't make higher education game-friendly. I think that's all bunk, and you just need to try it and figure out how you can do it, how you can make it resonate with your audience. And as you know, I'm so happy we were finally able to make it mobile friendly, because as most people know, more people than not are accessing Facebook from their phones. So it's not really worth your while to launch a huge engagement strategy like a game and not allow people to be able to access it with their phone. So we're glad we could do that now. And yeah.
I'm going to share Lori Packer's. She just tweeted. Lori's from University of Rochester, and she's got a great example of a trivia contest that they did on Twitter that they do regularly when there are concerts coming to campus. And the tickets are snapped up in seconds, and it helps promote the show. Also gives people a little bit of extra reason to tune into the university Twitter handle, because they know they're offering these kind of value-add giveaways. So thank you, Lori, for that addition.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of these things are things that have been going on for decades, you know, like radio call-in contests. I mean, these are, I think so much of social media engagement and content comes down to understanding human behaviors and just repackaging that with an institutional bow. You know, like, and it's not always easy to do. It takes creativity. You want it to be authentic, and you want to do it right. But it's not as crazy and risky, I think, as some people think, because people are used to doing these things, and they will probably actually welcome an opportunity to engage with you in a way that doesn't make them hate you.
Well, I'm glad you bring up crazy and risky, because number 6
it's what I do.
That's what you do.
It's going to be the name of my autobiography.
Is student takeovers. Student takeovers are for sure social media gold. It was super successful for me when I was at RIT over YouTube, allowing students to take over our YouTube channel. It is super successful on Instagram, as has been proven by Meg Bernier at St. Lawrence University with the Here You Go Saints campaign on Instagram. It works for alumni too. You can let alumni take over Twitter handles. Kim Brown at Syracuse has proved this with Working Orange. And I'm really excited to follow along with what NYU Stern is doing right now, because they're having a student takeover on Snapchat. So if you look and you want to follow the username NYU Stern on Snapchat, started yesterday, it's continuing today. So Keith, what would you say to the naysayers who are afraid of handing over their institutional brands to students or alumni, who could just go out there and say anything?
Well, I have a lot of things I'd like to say to naysayers, which may or may not be appropriate on this particular program. But with regards to this, I think you have to understand that we are not always in position as staff members to provide the audience with the best content. And students are in a unique position to capture student life, both for other students and for the alumni audience. You know, alumni love to see students in the places doing things similar to what they did. You know, it helps create that nostalgia. I can't legally go into somebody's dorm room and start snapping pictures. I'll get arrested and I'll probably lose my job. But I can go to something like Iconosquare and do a Cornell hashtag search and look at all the wonderful photos that students are taking, sharing the campus experience, and regram those and give alumni a glimpse into the current student life. And with regards to turning the account over, certainly there's ways to do that with moderation in place. I wouldn't give a student my login credentials to the Cornell alumni Instagram handle, but you can be in close contact with them where they're sending you photos throughout the day, and then you post on their behalf with their caption. So there's ways to have your cake and eat it too, without just giving the keys to the castle. Plus, I mean, we have students doing so much on behalf of the university anyway. Certainly, we all know trustworthy students that would produce content in good taste, and we don't have to lose sleep over what are they going to do. I mean, let's be honest, they have a social reputation as well, so they're not, if you pick the right student, they're not going to destroy the sanctity of your brand. And again, it's one of those things where the rewards far outweigh the minimal risk involved.
I used to argue with my director of admission, who was afraid to have students tweeting whatever they want on Twitter. And I convinced him that the argument that won him over was, we train the same students to take families out on tour.
Yeah.
We have no idea what they say. And I was one of those tour guides. So I know you can make up whatever you want once you're outside that office to just make that family happy. And this is so much more oversight than you have with those tour guides because they're publishing things publicly. So there's, I think there's a little bit of fear that is not warranted. I want to move on to number 5, and number 5 comes with a shout out to Caleb Rule. Number 5 is regramming, and Keith, this is common practice in our shop. Can you give us a quick how-to on the regram?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple, professional acts of professionalism to take when it comes to regramming. In terms of the best way to do it, as I mentioned, there's a site called Iconosquare that I like to use, which is basically a web viewer for Instagram. It used to be called Statagram, and now they are Iconosquare. I recommend creating an account with them just because they also deliver you some good analytics on your own Instagram account. But then you can also search by hashtag, and you might be just dismayed to see how many photos there are tagged with your institution. There are over 92,000 photos tagged Cornell on Instagram. I mean, that's a pretty big archive of content, and it's probably way more user-friendly than your own university archives. At least it is here. So, I usually look at that every day and see what students or people around campus are posting. And the nice thing about Iconosquare is you can just right-click on these photos and download them and keep a folder of all these photos. And when I do that, I make sure to save the photo name and include the author of the photo so that when I repost on Twitter or Facebook, I can include the name of the person who took the photo. So attributing credit, I think, is really important when regramming. And it has another benefit, a residual benefit, and then people will see their name, and that usually gets them excited to see that you use their photo, and or if they don't see it, their friends might see it and tag that author. So I think it's there's a lot of good that can come out of regramming. And again,
well, you just answered Matt Hinsa's question that came through over Twitter. Shout out to Matt Hinsa, who is over there doing great work at Harvard, but is a Cornell alum. So we know he bleeds the big red and not the crimson. He was wondering, how we handle that issue of copyright and Instagram's terms of service when regramming. Is it kind of ask for forgiveness, not permission kind of thing? Is you're crediting the photos with the students' names? Are you getting backlash?
No, have not received any backlash and been doing it for, almost a couple years now. I do usually credit that the source is Instagram. So in addition to the student's name, I do say where it came from. And I'm usually only posting these things on Facebook, which, by the way, owns Instagram now. So I don't imagine Instagram is going to sue me for using a photo on a network that they are owned by.
I think they break their own terms of service all the time by doing this, by letting others. So it's a gray area that we like to embrace.
Yeah, and I would say, if you get contacted by the photographer and they said, you know what, I don't want you sharing my photos, then I would respect that. If that keeps happening, maybe you don't have a good campus community to do something like this. I have never received negative feedback from a photographer or a Instagram user, only happiness that their photo was featured. So, like anything, I think you have to monitor responses and make sure that you're not making anyone angry. And when you do, you say, okay, sorry, we've been doing this for a while, and we'll take the photo down and make sure we don't use your Instagram photos again. But I think, again, I think it's about authentic content, and these photos offer a look into campus life that we just can't get from an institutional office.
Yep, exactly. So number 4, we are up to number 4. Number 4 is the catchy hashtag. And creating a hashtag that sticks can be tricky. So Keith, do you have any suggestions as to how to create a hashtag that can be tricky, how to a hashtag that sticks? I think we've done a couple of things at Cornell, making sure that we're not trumping someone else's tag or reaching out to our active social media users to see what hashtag they'd like to use.
Yeah.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about how we source some of that stuff from our social media ambassadors on Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's a fine line between wanting to be creative and creating a hashtag that isn't intuitive. So I think you want to be unique. Certainly, you want to search to make sure nobody else is using a hashtag you think you're going to market. But I don't think you want to be too unique. You want to almost have a hashtag that you think people would use if they didn't know what hashtag you were marketing. So for instance, we have homecoming coming up at Cornell. So, we're going to market the heck out of our hashtag, which is CU Home, which is pretty intuitive, not overly exciting, but it makes sense. And some people might not hear about the marketing; they might use a hashtag Cornell Homecoming or something like that. But I think for the most part, CU Home, there's a good chance people are just going to use that intuitively.
Well, I want to give some shout outs to Kira Riley and Kristen Gowan, who helped us source this number for the catchy hashtag. Kristen is at Union College, and she rallies people around a beloved campus landmark, which I think is really cool. So she encourages visitors and students and alumni to take a knot shot of the Knott building on campus. And you're talking about promotion of these hashtags, which I think is really important. And so Kristen cues people with offline posts, like actual visuals and flyers, to say, while you are out, don't forget to take your photo and share it. So I think that's really important. I also wanted to use this opportunity to talk about the social media Facebook group that you created, Keith, with really active social media folks that we know of, that we're able to kind of bounce these ideas around. So before we come up with a hashtag, we might say, here are some ideas of the hashtag we want to use for this event. What would you use? So tell me more about that group, its purpose, why we have it, besides that, besides bouncing hashtag ideas around.
Yeah, so we recognized that, again, going back to the idea that organic reach is becoming increasingly hard to obtain, especially on Facebook. that the idea of online ambassadors could be very useful in helping to spread our message around social media. So, there are tools out there like Social Toaster, which is something we're looking into, and other softwares that allow you to do this for a price. In the meantime, we just decided to start a Facebook group and invited certain alumni who we have a relationship with on social media to be part of the group. And I think we actually called it Cornell Social Media Ambassadors. And so we invited them to the group with the idea that, hey, we're going to have important content to share, and we're going to put it on our Facebook page, but it's going to be a lot more powerful if you know it's coming and you can also share it out there with your friends, because you're alums and you have a lot of friends that are alums, and that can help with the organic reach. So yeah, in situations like hashtags, we can then say, oh, we got an event coming up. Like the most recent example is we have this famous Cornell Cats parade happening in New York City, and it's really popular amongst like the band community, but we were a little unsure how we could hashtag it to resonate with all alumni, so we gave the people in the group 4 or 5 choices in terms of hashtags we kind of came up with. I think Ashley came up with most of them, and just kind of had them vote on it, which makes sense. And so, you can't go wrong, I think, making decisions like that based on direct feedback from alumni. That's a fairly bulletproof way to make social media decisions should your bosses ever question why you did something.
Exactly. Well, I do want to talk a little bit more about that struggle with reach, particularly on Facebook and Twitter, and it is a great segue into number 3. That is a shout out to Chris Butler for giving us supporting photos and graphics. So those text posts on social, purely text-based posts are kind of a thing of the past. Keith, can you tell me how supporting photos and graphics help our social media posts?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always times where, yeah, you could just take a photo off Instagram and it tells the story, but there's plenty of times where it needs more support. And it's not only support, but it's a chance to, I think, inject more branding. When you talk about promoting hashtags, for instance, if you have a campaign going on, you should bake hashtags into some of your photos. Or, we have homecoming up, adding in homecoming logos on top of some of these photos. So I think it's especially important to consider enhancing your photos when you're talking about doing marketing within social media. And sometimes, one photo is not going to tell the story. Maybe you have multiple photos that, you need to piece together to really convey what you want to convey in one post, because certainly you don't want to do multiple posts in a row, or you could do an album, and sometimes albums are really engaging, but you're not going to be able to really tell the story you want in an album.
Albums is and I have to give more shout outs. This is the shout out show extraordinaire.
Shout out Thursday.
Caleb Rule, again, second shout out of the show for Caleb. He gets extra credit because he shared some data with me this morning, and he said that when he's posting albums on photos, he's getting extra engagement. So the little tidbit of data that he shared was that for engaged users, he had an average of about 500 unique clicks on a photo album on Facebook. 500 unique clicks versus about 100 unique clicks for a single photo. So he has a pretty good hunch that the Facebook algorithm is driving more organic reach to a group of photos versus just one single photo. So Caleb, thank you for your insight. We also know that it's a great source of earned media, post-event to share an album of the photos that were taken during the event, because people will go in there and look for themselves and tag their friends.
Right.
And then they're providing the peer-to-peer outreach for us, which is much more powerful than anything that we can try to do. And if you're using a university page on Facebook, you can't tag people like you can if you're their friend.
Yeah, and this past reunion, we always try to capture reunion in real time, which is great unless people aren't paying attention to Facebook on a Saturday afternoon, which is most people. So I think this was the first year we were posting daily albums of reunion at the end of the day, kind of a collection of, like a dozen photos from the day that kind of recapped everything going on, and those were way more, had more engagement than just the single photos throughout the day. And it's actually we promoted some of those. We boosted those posts, and it's instead of just trying to boost one photo, you have a chance to boost a dozen within one post, and which is far more engaging, I think.
Absolutely. We've got a couple more minutes, and we've got 2 more social media gold pieces for you. Number two sounds more complicated than it is. Responding on social media based on active listening. And I have to give a shout out to Chris Butler again, and to Matt Hames for this one. Chris uses geolocation to listen in on conversations that are happening on his campus. Super smart. Matt is collecting Twitter handles before events through event registration, and will welcome visitors to campus on the event day. Also, super smart. So this is responding based on relevance and timing. Fantastic strategies. Keith, how else do you listen for community buzz, and how do you respond to that?
Well, I think it's incredibly important as a social media community manager to make sure you're living in the moment. I mean, we have seen it time and time again. You think of Oreo during the Super Bowl blackout, like people that are paying attention in the moment and capitalizing on things that happen in the moment you get just better engagement because it's timely. So, just things like, for me, it's always making sure TweetDeck is visible on one of my screens, monitoring the Cornell hashtag or an event hashtag. And if people have a question or people are talking about Cornell, I can quickly retweet or reply. And that kind of instant feedback for people from an institutional handle, I think, is really rather exciting at times for them. Especially during admissions time, when students are getting their acceptance letters and tweeting about it. That's easy to retweet and kind of get them in your social pipeline before they even step on campus. Mm-hmm. Another example is I love to make videos in the moment. Last winter, or 2 winters ago, actually, I think, we had a day where it was, 10, 15 below zero, maybe more with the wind chill. So I just ran out there with the camera and was interviewing students trying to hike up the big slope on our campus in this frigid weather. While I was doing that, a nor'easter blew in, and we had whiteout conditions. So I'm out there trying to interview students, and not only minus 10-degree weather, but just an absolute blizzard at the same time. Got back to the office once I could feel my fingers again. I edited it together. Quick turnaround, not pretty. 2-minute video, got it up on YouTube, and had thousands of views within the first couple hours, and I think now it's somewhere around 20,000 views historically. So I do that a lot, especially with weather-related stuff, because I know it's something that usually resonates with our alumni. Some people might think that's, quote, cheap content. I couldn't disagree more. I think content is, if it resonates with your audience, it's golden content, not cheap content. And last time I checked, gold is not cheap. It's actually kind of the standard of which we measure things. I think those are opportunities. When there's, again, capitalizing off things that people are already talking about. So when they give like a winter storm a name, this is something I found with last year because I started naming winter storms. So when winter storms would hit Cornell, I would say things like, oh, Nemo has hit Cornell. And I would interview students like, what do you think of Nemo? And basically they were like, Nemo's like every other day here, which alumni can have a laugh at and say, yeah, that's true. Like, you call it Nemo, we call it Monday, So taking advantage of those things and never assuming that content is too stupid, I think, is important. Don't overthink it. You might think, oh, a man out in the snow with a camera, that seems stupid or not worthy of our institutional image. And the best way to alienate your audience is to take yourself too seriously. So never make the assumption that content is too stupid for your audience. If it's not good content, you'll know because people won't engage with it, and then you don't do it again. So it's get out there and try to capitalize on some of these things.
Well, we have made it to number 1. I think we need a big drum roll. I think if you're tuning in, you should be drumming at your desk too. Number 1, because we could not make any of these tactics possible without number 1, our shout out is going to none other than Maayan Plout. Maayan Plout for giving us content gold. The number 1 is content gold, and we've kind of alluded to that over several of our top 10 items here. But what does content gold mean? Tell me more about how we know the content is right for our audience.
Well, I think it's right if they engage with it. I mean, we obsess over metrics and analytics and things like that. So it's not hard to see if something resonates. If you post something like, oh, did you made your tax deductible gift to the annual fund this year, and you hear crickets, and then you post a picture of a blizzard on campus with a student up to their waist in snow, and it has an organic reach of 25,000, then you kind of know how you should angle your content strategy. I'd like to say, it's in Hollywood. There's an adage, like for actors and artists, it's like, you make one for the studio and then you make one for yourself. So, with regards to social media, I would say, you make 80% of the content for them, and then maybe you slip in 20% for your institution. And you might just find that the audience is more receptive to the calls to action you're going to make of them. If you just flood it with nothing but, we want you to do this, we want you to register for this, we want you to give, we want you to talk about us, we want you to celebrate us, without celebrating them and the things that matter to them, I think you're wasting your time with social. So for me, content gold is, one, to find it, you just got to kind of throw a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And the stuff that sticks, reuse it. Reuse. We talk about weather. Well, weather can be a lot of things. Weather can be nature. Weather can, can be snow. It can be rain. It can be a beautiful day. Food on campus. The things that resonate with all alumni. You might have a huge research breakthrough done by your engineering faculty, but that might engineering only resonates with a small percentage of your alumni audience. But the campus experience is something that resonates with everybody. Everybody went through the weather. Everybody ate the food. Everybody went in the iconic buildings. Everybody went to the campus events that have hundreds of years of history behind them. So I think content gold creates a feeling, or I should say resonates with the majority of your audience. Not
We're having such a great back channel that started with our comments about text being a thing of the past, and there are some folks following along that are still getting action from their text posts, and lo and behold, it's because they've got content gold. And I want to go ahead and quote Lori Packer and Tim Netkritz here, because they really have a great conversation happening in parallel to ours. Lori says you have to have you can have an emotional impact, you can create a surprise, and you can do that with words too. So a hat tip to Lori and Tim for that great back channel comment, and I think we're hitting the nail on the head there with the emotional response that we're trying to give. We're trying to bring people into our institutions, brands that way. We want them to feel good about us and their time that they're spending on campus, or the memories that they have of their time spent.
Yeah, I think, again, that goes back to knowing and measuring your audience. Like, the numbers don't lie. Text posts might not work for some people, but I would also say it's probably it's what's within the text is what matters. It's not the medium. It's not, or I should say the media, photo, video. Like, we assume that photos and videos are more engaging. But videos also take more time. They require more effort from the audience. A text is easy to read, so maybe your audience is very busy and they just want a small tidbit to engage with. And you know what? If you can find just words that really resonate with your audience, then that's great. Then I would say you're really in touch with your community, and you don't have to rely on some of these more sophisticated. I wouldn't say sophisticated. That might be a little dramatic. But yeah, moral of the story is, if text works for you and you're getting engagement from it, keep doing text. Who are we to tell you not to do text? Every constituency is different. It's not, none of this stuff is silver bullet. What we do might not work for you. If you have a school in Florida, weather probably isn't going to be that effective of a content strategy, minus hurricane season, which probably is not something to be celebrated for the most part. Southern California, it's sunny every day. Not that exciting. But the one day it does snow at USC, you better be out there with your camera and capturing the mass panic that is sure to ensue.
Well, thank you so much, Keith Hannon, my Cornell BFF. Thanks always to our program sponsors, mStoner, Omni Update, and Terminal 4. We will be back next week with shows from Advancement and Student Affairs Live. You can receive weekly reminders about our shows by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. And if you want more professional development right now, go over to our archives at higheredlive.com or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. I'm Ashley Budd, and I will be back with you next month for more Higher Ed Live, right here, higheredlive.com. Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank you.